The NP273 transfer case is a electronic shift, which has this little splined doodad sticking out of the side of it. There's 13 splines on it. It's actually a 14 spline layout, but it has that one flat on it right there. The shift pattern on it appears to be rotated counterclockwise all the way is 4 low, and then going clockwise back is neutral, 2 high, and then 4 high. I had gotten quite a bargain on the transmission, so I just felt I would have to deal with the electronic shift because it's not something that I had really wanted. So I figured I would make something. It was a little more tedious than I anticipated, but I came up with something that I think is going to work. So the spline shaft in the transfer case, I couldn't take the transfer case back out, and I was having a really hard time trying to match up the splines. So what I had done was I took some Bondo, and well, first I took some tape, put it all around the side of the transfer case, around the shaft. Then I took some Bondo and covered over the nub of the shaft, and after it hardened, I ended up with a negative of it. And it showed where the splines are, and there's a one spot on here, which I can't find, right there where there's the one spline missing. It has a little extra rib on it. I took this, sprayed it down with canola oil, just a spray oil, put Bondo over that and let that harden, and I ended up with a positive of it. So I had a mock-up of my spline shaft off the transfer case, and then the two of those just nest together, and it worked out pretty well, so that I had something in my hand that I could play with, because I tried using pieces of paper and marking it out, and drilling out 1/2-inch holes through some nuts, and trying to hand carve splines. I just couldn't get anything to match up. So taking this, I ended up with took a piece of steel. It was about 3/8-inch thick steel, roughed out about the size of what I wanted to it, drilled a 1/2-inch hole, and then took this piece, held it behind, and then very carefully marked out one spline at a time, and using a hand file, worked my way through. There was a lot of times in and out underneath of the truck to get it to fit, because I didn't want it to be loose to overdo it, which I had done in the past. So just very carefully marking this out, climbing underneath of the truck, and it actually fits pretty well. So this thing has about a 3¼ inch, 3½-inch from center to center on the hole, 3-inch, sorry. Then I drilled and tapped for a couple set screws on the edge to hold it in place. I took some extra four-wheel drive shift linkage from the 97 Dodge that I wasn't initially using, but then I took this used to be connected together somewhere in that manner, but I cut it apart and modified the pieces. So these two pieces here will end up being connected by this linkage, like that. So as this one is rotated, obviously this one follows along for the manual shifting. So I'm going to go get it set up in the truck now, and you can see how all the pieces go together, see how it works. This piece here mounts to this part, slips into the transfer case. This part here is bolted onto the transmission, the G56, as well as this one. I initially just had this piece here as the shaft, which this slides through for my shifter, but there was a little too much play, a little too much flex in it, so I ended up adding this piece to stiffen it up. And this go on here, it has a pair of holes drilled in it with a bolt locks it in place like that, and this connects to it in that manner. Alright, so let's see if we can get it on the truck and see if it works. Here's the upper linkage assembly installed. There's one anchor point into the transmission. There's another one there. I ran the tubing through the lifting rib on the transmission, and the other anchor point is through there into the one of the 6 bolts on the transfer case. This seems to function pretty smoothly. It's got a little bit of play to it. It's just a piece of 3/4 pipe with a 3/4 inch bolt that I had modified to run through it. It seems to be functioning okay. I'll go downstairs and get the lower piece of linkage on. I wanted it to look kind of vintage, even though I'm using some pieces from the 97 Dodge, as well as the bodywork being the vintage style in the 42. So I made some pedals up to look similar. Alright, so I'm going to go downstairs and we'll put the splined linkage piece on and make the connection and see how it functions.